Kentucky, number 7, Tennessee. Tennessee's a 16.5 point favorite. The over-under I have, if it was only 6.5, I'd be like, buddy, bet the farm. The over-under I have is 0.5 first half Tennessee points. Been a minute, Will. Been a minute. Last time Tennessee scored a first half point was the Oklahoma game. Yep. That doesn't seem real. That can't be. It is. They didn't score a first half point in October. That's a long month. Got 31 days.
Again, this was our joke about Heupel forever, that he was the script god in the first 15 plays. He better score 21 points because now he's like anti-script god.
Yep. The Tennessee offense sunk to a low that had me referencing the John F. Kennedy administration. Yep. That's what we're talking about. They're trying to score their first half point since September. Yeah. The good news for Tennessee in that offense, Florida put up 48 against this Kentucky defense and did so with freshmen at running back and quarterback. And then Auburn last week ran all over UK in the second half of that one. Jarquez Hunter, he's still running. Last I checked. That would, to me, suggest Dylan Sampson should be able to do the same. The other good news for Tennessee is that Josh Heupel's offense put up an average of 41 points in his 3 matchups against Kentucky. 3-0 against him, including the 44-6 bloodbath 2 years ago in Knoxville. That game was a rout. Oof. I mentioned a few weeks ago, what would be the most surprising SEC single game result the rest of the season? Kentucky winning this game probably wouldn't be number 1 on that list, but it would be in the discussion. It really would. But they probably get taken out because they've already beat a top 10 team on the road. They already had the win against Ole Miss. If they didn't have that, this would probably be your leader in the clubhouse for that. But I think it's at least worth entering the discussion considering how dominant Heupel's been against Kentucky, as well as how bad Kentucky's been on offense, man. Like you're seeing a group that is just void of answers at this point. Bush Hamden, this experiment hasn't really worked out. I don't think he feels particularly confident about either quarterback. I don't really care if it's Brock Vandegrift or Gavin Wimsatt out there. I wouldn't trust either of them to be able to operate against this Tennessee defense, which most recently made Jalen Milroe completely ineffective in the second half of that game, at least for significant chunks of it outside of that one go-ahead drive. But I think this one's ugly. I think it's just an ugly game that maybe Tennessee's offense doesn't feel great about, but it never really feels like it's in doubt for the Vols. And I'm going to say Tennessee wins this one 31-6.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about this game, right? You call it a bunch of stuff, but it's never been called pretty over these last couple of matchups, right? With Stoops and Heupel. It's been one team. Like, last year was a good game, don't get me wrong, but it was that smash mouth game with all the
21 was a
rushing
good game,
yards.
too. 21 was kind of a fun back-and-forth shootout with these two teams.
Yeah, and point being there, like, in terms of, like, you're not seeing the beautiful game of football a lot. It'll be smash mouth or it'll be kind of stuck in the tracks. And I think that Kentucky, to your point, is at a point where they are pretty stuck in the tracks. Yeah, I think Stoops is kind of, you never know what you're going to get. I will say that Stoops has been really comfy in these low-scoring games, just historically. If you need a Stoops win, it's going to be in a low-scoring game. But that being said, yeah, I think there's just too many deficiencies on that side. You know, the things that we've been worried about with Kentucky, I mean, for years at this point, where it comes to receivers and quarterback not being on the same page, the big blue turnstile against Tennessee's, great D-line and linebackers. I will say, to your point, I think Tennessee needs to get going early. This is a great opportunity. A Kentucky team that, was gasping for air against Auburn last week, has been shut down and most of the SEC games, unable to move the ball. I think for Tennessee, generate a turnover, get after them early. This might be one of the only times I break my rule and say, hey, receive the opening kickoff, because if you're Tennessee, you just go down there and score real quick. Or, hey, just kick it off and let them try to play offense. Either way. But I think if you're Heupel, it's like, hey, this is a get-right game. To your point, it's favored Heupel most of the time. And I think that against this style, with like Dylan Sampson, funny enough, is just so built for this game in a way that I don't think the Kentucky the Kentucky running backs are. We don't have
not healthy either, which is part of it too, which definitely hurt that offense against Auburn. I don't really know if that would have made I don't think that makes the difference in that game, but without them in the second half, they just had no identity whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're not getting a vintage. Maybe we do, but there's no. Martinez coming through that door.
Rodriguez,
right?
Chris Rodriguez. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Rodriguez. Yes, you're right. But yeah, there's no any of these great Kentucky backs coming through the door. So point being, I think that even even in like a smash mouth game, Tennessee just needs to not overthink this and stay on the dang field, which I've been doing better at. But yeah, it's like he became like a bizarro version of himself, right? It's like the drive used to be really quick. They would score fast or they wouldn't at all. Now it's like they're just out there taking their sweet time. The clock's running. Dylan Sampson's sweating profusely. They can't hit the deep ball, but they're out running for 6 yards a carry. But yeah, I'm taking Tennessee here.
I'll say this just because if this is indeed a Tennessee blowout win, if this is indeed a really bad bowl-less season for Kentucky, Kentucky's not paying Mark Stoops $44 million to go away. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're not paying their winningest coach of all time $44 million. That's his buyout to go away. Now, could there be some sort of settlement, some sort of $15 million up front, go fund your bourbon company, go live a great life. You don't have the heart for this anymore. Let's just, we don't want to tarnish your legacy anymore. Could they come to some sort of resolution like that? Absolutely. I've predicted that this will be the last season that Mark Stoops is in Lexington. I did not predict that because I thought they were going to pay $44 million to fire him. I was saying more so, I think Mark Stoops realizes that he's done what he can do in 12 years in Lexington. And maybe he finds his next passion in life, selling bourbon, being a defensive analyst somewhere. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But keep that in mind because the rest of the schedule is incredibly difficult. And it will be a popular topic of conversation in games in which there's probably not a whole lot else to talk about.
Yep.
So
I agree. His version of the Jimbo Fisher ranch houses is distilleries. If I were you, Stoops, I'd go ahead and buy a distillery or two and be like, I got overhead costs. I'm not walking away from this, and get your whole buyout. That's my negotiating tip.
It's good seed money. Good seed money. You can get that up front and just send that thing to the moon, man. That's the way to do it.